Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Trustees work session for December 3rd, 2025. We convene this meeting at 5:10. Clerk Perillo, could you please confirm the presence of a quorum?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Franco?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky has been excused. Mayor, we have, of course, Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gafka with us as well.
Thank you. All right, can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So today we have with us, our first item on the agenda for this meeting is to discuss and be briefed on, for this board to be briefed on, the Cleanfill Reclamation Feasibility Study report provided by, Chris, pronounce your last name, please.
Chris Alms, PW Grosser Consulting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have here, sitting with us today, is Chris, who worked on the report and will be presenting this board with information that, and a little bit of history and background on what the village has been facing up at the Cleanfill area, which is a village public works facility. It is surrounded by golf course property at the country club, but it is a public works facility that was in 1992 first established as a DEC permitted clean landfill facility. It's just under 2 acres. We call it a 2-acre facility. Just for a little bit of background before Chris starts, the village has been working with our engineering firm, Hayduck Engineering, and Peter Scully is our environmental consultant with Hayduck. He's been helping guide us through some of these activities and efforts. We have established very recently a working group that will help guide us, made up of residents and experts, that will help guide us through this process as we go through the process of understanding what our options are as a village and what the unfunded mandates consist of by the DEC, which has determined that the facility cannot operate in the same way that it's been operating for the last 23 years. No, 30, 40, 33 years. 33, right? So 1992. Yeah. So that said, the conversation will ensue. Please, have any questions that you have as we go through this. This is not a one and done situation. Like I said, we've invited experts in the industry and with experience in engineering and landfill environmental issues to sit on this working group, and we have several of them here today. We've asked David Knopf, who is the chair of the Citizens Commission on Erosion, to also serve as the chair of this working group for the Cleanfill. And also we have Chick Voorhees, who is a principal in the firm Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and has environmental engineering expertise in his resume. Also, we have Gil Anderson, who is not only a member of our planning board, but also has served, he's an engineer as well. He has served as commissioner of the Public Works Department for Suffolk County for a number of years, and he's agreed to serve on this committee. And also, who am I missing, Peter? Will Bowman, who is an environmental biologist, and he also agreed to serve on this. He also serves on our Conservation Advisory Council and the Citizens Commission on Erosion, so he's an environmental expert. So we have a pretty great working group to help us out with this. And so from there, Chris, if you want to get started.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. And a little bit about my background. I'm with firm PW Grosser Consulting Engineers. I've been with them since 1997. My background education is geology. I'm not an engineer, but I've been involved in mining and solid waste projects for the past 2 decades. PW Grosser got asked to work on this project about 3 years ago. And again, this is a little under a 2-acre kettle hole area that was surrounded by the golf course. That since 1992, the village has used it for depositing debris, mostly vegetative debris, basically stumps, branches, things of that nature, along with some soil, some rocks, some concrete. They've been put there, and basically in 2017, New York State DEC changed some of their solid waste regulations. And when that occurred, it moved this into a different this clean fill area, or landfill, into a different classification. It took DEC a few years to actually notify the village. So about 3 or 4 years ago, a notification came that the village no longer fit under, it now is under a bigger umbrella. It had to treat this area similar to how a solid waste landfill would be treated, which would require a tremendous amount of administrative effort. In addition, plans how that landfill will eventually be capped and closed, along with groundwater monitoring, methane monitoring, everything that you would require out of a large-scale landfill. You're in a very small population on Long Island. There are only about 3 or 4, and unfortunately, because of the changes in regulation, not because of anything the village did different in their how they were handling it, just change in regulations, kind of looped you into this category that you don't really want to be in, unfortunately. PW Grosser got involved about 3 years ago to kind of look at some of the regulations, have discussions with DEC. DEC has been, even though they have these regulations, they've been very slow to push the village into taking one route or another. They know how the site's been used over the past since 1992. They know essentially there's very little risk that there's anything severely or significantly dangerous or contaminated. They know it's been mostly vegetative material that's been used, that the village has generated and picked up, from village residents, and some street sweepings and some concrete, fairly inert material has been put in this kettle hole. So PWGC got involved. We had started having discussions with DEC, seeing what they were going to require of the village going forward. And they basically said that either the village could get the facility up to speed and permitted as a landfill and continue operations. They could either cap the landfill and close it down, or they could reclaim it. And reclaiming basically means digging out the material that's been put in there until you get to virgin material, and getting rid of the material you pull out. So those are the 3 options that they've kind of come up with for going forward. So over the past about year and a half, PW Grosser, we've looked at those options, put some pros and cons, some price tags together with what those would possibly look like. And some of this is very short-term and long-term. Any kind of monitoring, groundwater monitoring, or soil vapor monitoring will go on for decades. And again, then you'd also have if you keep it as a landfill, you'll eventually have some other constraints, site access constraints, how the property is used in the future as well. So what I'll do is I'll go through some of the highlights of the most recent kind of findings. I would, again, what I think the plan is going to be, have a meeting, possibly another meeting, and then if need be, a few site visits, either the landfill or other facilities that might be able to act as a model for how this area could be cleaned up. One of the reasons that I've gotten involved, I do represent a number of clients who have attempted to clean up, not so per se landfills, but are attempted and are in the process and have cleaned up vegetative dumping grounds. That stumps and branches and things like that have been deposited in the past, and so we've been successful at representing several of these industries that have either used properties for dumping grounds because that was allowed in the past, and then they wanted to reuse, or bought properties that have been utilized like this and are in the process of cleaning them up to figure out how to beneficially reuse that property in the future. So I do represent a number of clients who own properties and also who do these types of reclamations. So I'll go through the report a little bit. I would say, if anyone has questions as I'm going through, please ask, as we're going through. I'd rather kind of get those things out in the open and make sure we're, okay, all right, we're all clear? Okay, I wasn't sure about the working group, and okay, so, yeah.
My name is Peter Scully. I'm the Director of Business Development now with Haydock Engineering, but I joined the firm after retiring from government after 40 years, most of which was spent in the environmental field, including 12 years as Regional Director here in Long Island for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and prior to that was a local government solid waste manager. So I have a little bit of a perspective and have been working with P.W. Grosser since I became involved in early 2024. The only point I wanted to make of information is that with respect to the monitoring requirements under the capping and closure scenario, the village would be required to monitor for both groundwater and gas for a period of 30 years. And those are the requirements that are built into the cost estimates that Grosser has prepared.
You want to come up and sit with us, Peter?
No, I'll be fine over here. Chris
Are
will do a
you
great
sure?
job. Yeah. Well, Grosser's a great firm for this work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, we have these three different options, and right now what's been.
Can I interrupt
Yeah,
one more
sure.
time? If anyone from the working group has a question in between, it's fine. Let us know. All right.
Now, how it's been explained to us that this the pit would be used to basically take village-generated organic debris, concrete, things like that, and put in the pit. And it was roughly estimated somewhere between 700 cubic yards a year was going in, but that kind of stopped maybe about a dozen years ago where things were being brought in, but then also brought out at the end of the season, and it was almost just a temporary staging ground. From what's been reported, there really hasn't been there hasn't been a mass import of material in at least 4 or 5 years. So the material, it has not been growing. All right. We did an investigation consisting of 9 test pits throughout the area back in February with DEC doing oversight. We dug down 9 test pits to about 21 feet. And in most of those areas, we found, some of we were able to find virgin soil in some areas about 14, 15 feet. Other areas, it went the fill went about 20 to 21 feet. And again, the material consisted mostly of basically broken down organic wood type material that's kind of turned into basically like a compost material. There's wood debris. It's a majority of kind of almost like yard, not grass, but basically broken down topsoil, mulch type material, soils, some rock and concrete. There's some little amount of like lumber and let's say non-organic materials, but that's probably less than about 5% of what's in, based on the 9 test pits, probably about less than 5% of what we saw throughout all the 9 test pits. So a majority, 70, 80% of the material is topsoil and organic material. And the topsoil itself it's consistent of material that's basically been woody material that's kind of broken down over time. So again, the site has not been used for additional dumping in 4 or 5 years, according to the staff. So the first option would be continued use of the clean fill and doing this with DEC permits put in place. This would basically allow the area to be used in the manner it's been used 5, 6, 7 years ago, going back 30 to 35 years. You'd probably get about another 30 to 40 years of life out of it if you wanted to continue to bring materials there and use it as basically an organic dumping yard. But with that comes pretty strict groundwater monitoring requirements. You need to put several groundwater wells around the clean fill and do routine groundwater sampling, initially probably quarterly and then annually, to see what effects it's going to have on groundwater. Eventually, once you're done with the site, you'll need to cap it with some sort of impervious membrane, possibly clay lens, things like that, to cap over the area so leachate can't go down. At that point, you'll need to put in some gas monitoring wells as well to allow the methane to escape and monitor the gas. Institutional controls, fencing, secured gates, cameras, and basically other means to just secure the area to make sure you're not having the kids play in the area and illegal dumping and things like that. And then, again, once the site is fully capped, you'll be dealing with post-closure site investigations and reporting, and again, 30 years of groundwater monitoring. So this option, based on today's dollars, is approximately about $3.8 million, or with the contingency I have in there, about $4.5 million. And over the next 3 years, it would probably be about $437,000 in costs to basically permit it and put some of the institutional controls in to operate it in that fashion. And again, one thing to think about is it hasn't been being used in this fashion already the past 4 or 5 years. This we looked at, although the village is not currently using it in that fashion.
Is it likely that DEC would permit that?
They would permit it.
They would.
Yep. We had discussions, and if the village wants to continue using it, they would allow it. There are some regulations on which basically say that if you haven't used the facility in a year, you're supposed to start capping it and closing it down. So we're in a little bit of a gray area with how aggressive the DEC is going to be with enforcing those things. And they know it hasn't been used in a few years, but they're not pushing for an aggressive closure.
And you need a microphone. You need to come up here, Peter. I knew it.
Yeah, the new regulations don't envision a facility like this, so they would not be issuing a typical landfill permit. They call it a non-specific facility permit. They tailor a permit for the facility to continue to use it.
Okay, gotcha. And the cost, is that one-time cost of 3.8 or 4.5 million contingency?
That would be roughly over the 30 years, the
Okay.
cost. And then, again, after it's capped, you would see some additional costs for groundwater monitoring going forward. But that's what we estimated. And again, as Peter's saying, with this is a specialty case, and as a result, we have spoken to the DEC numerous times. They're not exactly sure. They have a lot of internal questions themselves when we ask them about how they would handle this, because it's a very unique situation. I was on the phone with DEC this morning, again asking a few more questions about the groundwater monitoring requirements and about even if we go to reclamation and close it, what is the process? Because it's not very clear in the regulations how to get to closure. So when we get to that section, I could But what I'm getting at is DEC is. They're going to be flying a little bit by the seat of their pants, trying to figure out how to get you down different steps. And even though they're giving their best estimates what's going to be required, that could change in the future. We're seeing with everything we do groundwater monitoring on the island, there are always new and emerging contaminants that will be coming up, PFAS, other things that eventually get thrown into sampling requests that do unfortunately increase the cost of doing groundwater sampling. So coming down the pike, those things may get thrown on, even though this area even though there's not really concern that there was any, let's say, significant illegal dumping or chemicals. There was no evidence of that when we did the 9 test pits, that there were no significant odors, no significant petroleum smells. We didn't see any buckets or barrels or anything like that. It was a limited 9 boring test pit in the 2 acres. So there are areas that we didn't see everything under there. So anytime you dig a hole, there is a potential you're going to find things that you might not want to find. But in the limited investigation we did, it looked fairly benign, the material.
David has a question. Sure.
Chris, you mentioned organic materials. Oftentimes, organic materials are equated with hazardous waste and hazardous disposal. Is there any indication that there is any hazardous materials associated with organics? And what do you mean by the organics when you mention them?
Very good point, and should be a little more clear. I'm using the term organics or vegetative organic debris. It's how Suffolk County Department of Health, when they, about 2015, they were doing an investigation on vegetative organic debris facilities, looking at groundwater quality. Basically, what I'm talking about is tree debris, tree limbs. There could be some leaves, although it wasn't a leaf dumping ground, but organic, I don't want to confuse volatile organic compounds and chemicals with this term. Vegetative organics is the term that Suffolk County Department of Health kind of coined when they were looking at mulching facilities. Facilities where, basically they'll take leaves and tree debris, they'll take it, they'll grind it up, they'll make mulch, sell mulch, and people take that mulch and put it in their yard. So the term, we could use vegetative debris a little bit, instead of vegetative organics. It's a very good point. I don't want to scare anyone off with the term organics and volatile organic chemicals. So there was no indication when we did the 9 test pits that there were any that there was any evidence of any chemicals or anything significant environmental concerns that had been deposited there. The material, seemed natural tree debris, soils, and stone and concrete made up the majority of it. Again, there were no drums, there were no buckets, there was no indication that there was anything hazardous. We did not take soil samples. That was not part of the investigation. This was purely a visual investigation to see what was there. Once we get into taking soil samples, obviously the cost gets fairly expensive. So this was an initial visual inspection of the area to see what it looked like, what the compound, what the constituents of the fill were.
Yeah, I think David's question is more about the terminology, organics being misleading. I don't think there's a lot of uncertainty about what material is in that landfill, either on the part of DEC or the village. There's really no chance that there's any, very little chance there's any hazardous material, putrescible solid waste, anything other than what was permitted under the.
That was not seen in any of the tests.
No.
It was not seen in any of the
I think
tests.
David's question was about the terminology. That was my point.
Yes, yeah. And the term, again, these are vegetative breakdown products from, tree products, branches, and probably some soils that make up a majority of it.
Okay.
So, alternative 2 is clean fill reclamation. This would basically entail digging out anything that's non-native that was put into the pit. We estimated there's approximately 57,000 cubic yards of material that's been accumulated over the years. About less than 8% of that total volume consists of non-soils and non-vegetative organic materials. So we looked at some other similar operations the best we could around the island, looking at, when they do these kind of reclamations, and they haven't been landfills, but just when they do these reclamations, what are the products that they generate? And the main cost that could drive a project like this is if you have to dispose of a lot of material at specialty landfills off Long Island, or if it can't be beneficially reused. What we've seen at other facilities is a facility like the one we're doing in Kings Park. They are recycling or beneficially reusing more than 90% of the material they're digging out. Again, vegetative material and soils are coming out of the hole. That material it's going to different recycling facilities and being made into mulch, into topsoil. The concrete is being made into a crushed concrete blend that's then being sold. We see, at least from the test pits we did, I see very similar potential in this location to kind of potentially recycle a lot of that material. So in order to go down that path of reclamation, DEC would require a feasibility study, which we've completed by doing the test pits. We haven't formally kind of submitted, it in the format to DEC, but it's a majority of it's done. A reclamation work plan that would kind of talk about how the area is going to be reclaimed, how it's going to be excavated, how the material is going to be handled once it comes out. When does that reclamation stop? At what levels? Doing a post-reclamation kind of survey, and then putting a before and after kind of survey together that's submitted to DEC, along with an emergency response plan. If something's uncovered, how is it going to be? What are the contingencies going to be? How are we going to deal with if we come up with contaminated soil? How that's going to be handled as well. So this cost estimate is approximately $2.9 million, and that would be all spent if you go forward. That would be spent over the next 2 to 3 years. So this doesn't imply, and so after it's done, there are no further costs associated with the clean fill. You're basically digging out material, getting to a virgin material status, and now you have this property or this area to use how you want later on. I did confirm with DEC today that once the area is dug out and once we submit that post reclamation kind of survey to DEC, their jurisdiction ends. So there will not be, they did confirm today, it was Peter's idea, it was very good, that they would not require any groundwater monitoring as part of this reclamation. They verbally told me that today, and once the area is dug out, it would be finished and complete, and there would be no further action. Then it's property that the village could use for potentially another purpose if need be. So that, and any questions about the reclamation?
Thanks, Chris. Just once the material is removed, do you have any sense of what the side slopes would be like? Would additional grading work have to be done, or filling, or anything of that nature?
Good question. Originally, in our original estimate, we assumed the slopes were very shallow. When we did the test pits, we did many right by the edge, and they are. It's a fairly steep sloped, kettle hole. So it depends on how it's going to be used in the future. I know we discussed there are some potentials for, stormwater management or things like that. But right now, it would be steep to the point where it could be an attractive nuisance, where you might want to put fencing around it, because it's going to be probably a greater than a 2-to-1, slope. So it's you'd probably want to do something with it, depending on, one of the things that was discussed is how does the village potentially want to use this property in the future. So we didn't quite come up with those solutions yet, but yes, it could be. You'd probably want to keep kids away from it, and it'd probably be very similar to the bluff. The steepness of the bluff. To tell you the truth, yeah. So I'm just. So we would want to protect it until you figured out an end use.
That deep and that steep?
It's roughly about 20 foot. We'd be digging down 20 to 25 feet, most likely in the center, with fairly steep slopes. They could potentially push some of the top material around a little bit to make it a little more gentle. We would try and avoid having to bring in any material, but we could kind of play around with the slopes depending on how the village wants to use it in the future.
So the cost estimate here does not include fill.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's assuming DEC wants to see material come out rather than go back in.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the steepness of it, that is not, unfortunately, that doesn't fall into DEC's purview. Again, there could be potential to kind of shape the area around it and push some of that material in to make the slopes gentler. And I think that would be a function of how the village eventually may want to use the property in the future.
And so with this 3-year project anticipated, and DEC would take a look at this, they'd come in and they'd inspect the site, they'd inspect the progress, they'd take a look at everything, and then at the end of the project, they would basically sign off on it?
At the end of the project, first there would be a work plan submitted to DEC. They would probably, again, this is unique, they told me it would probably take them about 3 to 6 months to kind of approve such a work plan, because there'd be back and forth between whoever writes it and DEC to work out some minor issues.
We're the guinea pig.
Yes, yes. Similar. I mean, I imagine the work plan would be similar to what I have a client doing in Kings Park. There'd probably be some, talk about sampling of, and just confirming endpoint. Once that work plan's approved, then the village would probably go out to contract and to see what contractor would be interested. Based on the volume of material that needs to come out, I had envisioned this would probably be done over a period of 2 to 3 winters, so it doesn't get in the way of, the golf season. Possibly do it in late November through February, where one winter they dig out half the material, process it, ship it off. The next winter they come in and finish up the next area. And then, so a period of 3 years. Based on the equipment that can be transported there and staged, that seems very doable by a new number of contractors. That volume of material, doing about 25,000 to 30,000 in a period of 3 months. So we kind of broke it down into a 3-year process, and then once you're down at native materials or virgin soils, there would be either DEC doesn't know whether it's going to have to be a full survey, maybe just a drone flyover and just submit the new elevations along with some pictures showing that you're down at native materials to the DEC. At that point, they said they would sign off, and their jurisdiction for the site would end, and there would be no further requirements to do anything else.
David?
Simple question. If we did testing and we found that there's no contamination of the soil or the groundwater underneath there, why do we have to take out the materials if they're non-hazardous?
Very good question. It's because it's basically fill material that DEC considers, even if they're clean, even if it's just trees and things like that, and they come back perfectly clean, DEC doesn't allow in their regs for you to fill an area with material like that. It's not allowed in their regulations. I've had clients. Correct. At one point it was, and that's changed. I've clients out in East Hampton who have done the same thing. They've had yards they've filled with stumps, and then the regulations changed, and they dug out. They've had to dig those areas out. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it makes sense. Again, this is from what we've seen, it's benign material. And one thing we talked about early, one of the reasons we didn't actually take samples. Once you take a sample, now you have data, and now you have to act on that data. We visually looked at it and didn't see any signs of issues. Knowing that it gives the village some options going forward. But later on, any contractor would probably, and then the plan would involve taking out the organics, probably running them through a grinder, making a mulch, taking out the vegetative material, making a mulch and topsoil, and that would, what we've seen other places, that could go out to a recycling yard and then be sold. The soils that are generated would probably be sampled at a frequency of 1 per every 1,000 yards in accordance with DEC requirements. Concrete and things like that would just go off-site, and they'd be crushed somewhere and made into RCA. And then we have, in this budget, we have up to 30% of the material would have to be disposed of, which on what I've seen other places is probably a little high, but we wanted to have a fluff factor in there just in case. That 30% of soils, that we'd have to talk to DEC about. We haven't pushed them tremendously because we don't want them to push back. We've asked them a lot of questions on the side, not being extremely overly formal, because we haven't wanted them to put you under a microscope. So we've kind of had discussions with them, but without them having to really, push us back.
I mean, we filed, just a real quick piece of information for the board. We did file to renew that permit. They just haven't answered. They haven't said no, they haven't said yes. So we're not operating the facility.
So just to clarify, what did happen is that the village in 2022, I think, filed a renewal application, and DEC responded with a letter making clear that the new regulations were going to require a series of, it was at that point that the prior administration said, let's pause and try and figure out what the options are. That's when the prior administration brought Grosser on board. It's the ball is on the village's side to determine what the next steps are.
Mm-hmm.
And since that time, again, we've had a lot of we've had a lot of discussions, but we haven't submitted any action in writing to the DEC, because we trying to figure out, we've all been trying to figure out the best direction, path forward.
I just have a few questions, and maybe these are kind of more universal, but what was the genesis of the updated regulation? Like, what are they what problem is DEC trying to solve?
I don't, and Pete might know that better, why it came out.
So I bear the burden or the benefit of having worked for DEC for 12 years. And this was the first broad overhaul of the solid waste regulations since the 1990s. And it covered virtually every aspect of solid waste regulation in the state of New York. And this is just the one aspect that pertained to Port Jefferson. It wasn't at all targeted.
Gotcha.
I think we're the only under 2 acre clean fill in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles in New York
Yeah,
State.
it's the only facility like it in the state. I tell everybody that when I was at DEC, I'd been a deputy supervisor of Brookhaven. I lived here my whole life. I had no idea that this facility was here. And when I was at DEC and learned that they came in for renewal in 2012, I just said, I don't even, I'm not going to interfere with the villages. But that's just the most interesting thing I've ever heard, Not knowing at the time that these regulations were going to be modified.
And when did the new regulation?
2017.
2017. And you said we're one of the guinea pigs. Is there other municipalities across the state that are? I'm just trying to see, like, is this something? Are we going to spend millions of dollars only for Albany 8 months later to say, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. We need to pull DEC back.
I don't know of any others that exist, but I can tell you there's nothing that I heard about updating the solid waste regs that it's going to change anytime soon. DEC and when their regs are coming out, even when they say they're coming out in a year, it's usually 3 or 4 years down the line, and I haven't heard that there's a plan to update these regulations at all.
Okay, but anyone who's been in government for a bit understands that when government puts out a net, right, they sometimes catch fish that they didn't plan on catching, or there's collateral damage that they never anticipated. Has those conversations ever been vetted, if Peter, you can answer, with the DEC, or that you know of on behalf of other clients, which apparently none exist, in a similar situation where they were like, did you really mean to do this to us? Similar discussions that took place when the bail reform came in, and they were like, well, wait a second, we're a justice court who meets once a month. There's no way we can comply with those regulations. Did you really mean to include us in them? Turns out they didn't. But is there a way path to try and say, hey, look over here, because I don't think you meant this? We have a situation that is the only one like it. It's doesn't have any contaminants in it. It's being regulated and underutilized. But let's throw $4 million at it. Just put it in the hole and bury it.
Great question, and my feeling is that the way to address it is you'd have to go through legislature and to kind of get it changed and put political pressure at the highest levels, because the intention was not to catch you. When they did the regs, it was not to catch you and make you change anything. They changed the regs and probably didn't realize they were going to catch you in the net. Probably wasn't their intention. If they knew it, they might have not put the regs, because they don't quite know how to handle it themselves. the technical people in this region. And that's why they've been very hands-off about enforcing it for the past 5-6 years. They are they're not pushing on their end. They understand you've been talking about it and trying to figure out, but I am not, unfortunately, I don't write policy, and so I haven't had those discussions with the policymakers. It's something that, Peter can tell you as well, if that's a very slow-moving train, and I don't know how to get you there. It's not.
I would add, as somebody who worked for the agency for 12 years, that what Grosser's been doing is interacting on behalf of the village with technical staff in the region. We envision that because this is a very unique situation, there's been some level of discussion between regional materials management staff and central office, but there's been no discussion whatsoever with any policymaker on a higher level at DEC. To answer your question directly, David.
Is there a time frame that we have to start something by, one of the alternatives?
No, DEC has been very standoffish about pushing this. They are not, again, because I don't think they meant to capture you guys in the net, and they don't necessarily know how to enforce it. So they are not pushing it because they know it's a financial burden. So when I spoke to them today, they don't call me to ask for updates at all. I think they're happy not hearing about it. But one day,
Should be happy not talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, that's.
So,
I guess that might be option 4, but I don't.
Well, that's
So-
kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And
just to answer Bob's question more
Kicking the can
directly.
down the road, Mayor, assuming that there's anyone there to ever catch the can. I've seen this before, where this may go on in perpetuity, where there's certainly plenty of codes on the books, police or otherwise, that legislatures thought would be a great idea, that are completely unenforceable, or the enforcement arm doesn't enforce it, as may have been suggested, because they just don't know how or what to do with it.
Yeah, so the regs technically, Bob, to answer your question directly, I think what the regulations say is that if you discontinue the use of a landfill, you need to move then to cap and close it within
1 year.
1 year. We're long past that, but DEC is not looking to enforce against the village in any way. They've been very cooperative on the staff level. They came and supervised the site investigation and test pits. They're just being cooperative. I think they find that they have no great desire to come after the village. Sooner or later, somebody's going to ask us what the plan is. Maybe some room for some policy discussion. And based on my preliminary discussions with some of the people who are serving on the work group, they have questions about the regulations. We'll see how it develops.
Yeah, I think we hear out alternative 3, but then our next stop really should probably be our state representatives for this board, at least.
The DEC is also, there's other landfills around Long Island that are being mandated to close. Is that correct? To discontinue use?
They're out of capacity. They're going to, they're at the end of their useful life. They're going to be
Brookhaven landfill has another 2 years or so, 2 to 3 years, and then there's it's being used for ash, and then you have Babylon, which has they're going to be going on for a little bit longer, but yeah, and again, those facilities have very stringent groundwater monitoring requirements as well, and that's why they make the paper, unfortunately, but yeah, so yeah, the landfill issue on Long Island is very limited.
And I feel like there was some appeal to DEC and maybe even the state at some point years ago, appealing the size of our kettle hole is just under 2 acres, and that regulations were 2 acres or greater. For 2 acres or greater, and that appeal was dismissed.
I would have to look into that. That wasn't, unfortunately, wasn't part of our scope. We were not involved in that, so I'll try and find
Maybe
out
it's
if
an
that
old wives' tale. I don't
Okay.
know.
I don't know enough about that.
Okay, number 3.
Okay. Alternative 3 is immediate closure of the clean fill without reclamation. So this would be basically You're not going to put anything else in the clean fill. You're not going to dig it out. You're basically going to cap the landfill and close it and start your 30 years of groundwater monitoring. So this basically is, this option, basically there'd be significant administrative things to come up with a design plan to cap it. We would probably need to bring in, the idea of putting a cap on a landfill is to divert precipitation from going into the landfill and causing leachate. So you want to mound it, put a cap on so the rainwater runs off to the side. Because you're in a hole, you'd have to bring in some material to cap it so the rainwater goes elsewhere. And then again, you'd need groundwater monitoring, you'd need gas collection system and venting system for a period of 30 years post-capping. You'd need, again, to gate it off. This estimate is about $3 million over the next 3 years. About $2.4 million would be required to kind of complete the capital costs, and then the long-term monitoring would go on and make up the remainder. And again, with that option, now you could possibly use the capped landfill. What we see on some landfills are solar panels, or kind of benign uses. It would be very tricky. I know building anything over it, or because you don't have stability in the soils. It's going to continue to break down, and that's going to continue to drop.
Those solar panels would take some hits from golf balls too.
They would. They would.
So if you calculated the total amount of fill that would be required to, if it's cleared out, how much is it? 90,000 yards of fill that would be required to fill in? Do you think?
Oh,
If
we
it were to be filled in after
we didn't
all is said and
look
done.
we didn't look at that, but it's probably somewhere between 90 and 130,000 cubic yards if you wanted to backfill it and level it off. That would be a very expensive proposition to get certified clean fill, that volume. So no, we just looked at pulling material out and leaving it as is, and again, depending on how the village might want to use it in the future, we didn't plan on future use.
Right.
So, but yes, that volume would be probably close to 100,000 cubic yards of material going back in if you wanted to level it. And that is something, again, would need, to backfill with clean fill, you'd need to get some sort of approval from DEC as well.
Okay. Did you have a question, David?
It's mind-boggling to me that something that is not costs so much. I'm just, just an observation that something that is most likely non-hazardous is obligating the community to this type of expense in addressing. And I would think that there must be some other way to do this, to sit down directly with the state agencies, DEC, as mentioned, to see, is there a way to, is this what they meant to do when they came up with this regulation, especially since we don't have any information that anything hazardous was put there. Why do we have to do anything? I mean, yeah, we fall into this category. It's not really a landfill, per se. Gas collection system doesn't seem to be appropriate here because what gases are going to be generated by what's in there. Raising it and capping it with impermeable material, we already know what's there, the water that falls on it goes through. We can do testing of what's underneath there now. Worst case scenarios, what's there? I mean, we should be able to have this discussion with them, I think, instead of spending millions of dollars.
I agree with your comment, and we should be able to have those conversations. And people in this room who've worked with DEC will say, you can't. They follow the regulations. You can't, if it's not in the regulation, you can't get past the technical people. I agree. This is a fairly benign issue, and to spend that much money on it is very painful. I
When the technical people you're referring to don't want to deal with it.
Yes, I think the conversations have to be had, but keep in mind, this is a regulated facility with a permit, right? And you're subject to their regulatory jurisdiction without question, right? So a good way to approach it might be, and this working group's well-equipped to deal with the issues, is think a little bit about how this area might fit into your future plans for the country club, and then figure out how you think you get there and make that proposal to DEC. This is what we would like to get done. How do we get there? That's a different perspective on how to get. This is a good technical assessment of what the options are from a regulatory
Yes.
standpoint.
Yep.
But I know that you're now looking at long-term planning for the country club, right? How could this be used? You know, we're looking at water reuse options. All of these things need to be kind of weighed and considered. And ask DEC how you get there.
All right. So, thought it was important that the board be aware of the issue at hand. And we have a very intelligent and well-equipped working group to start contemplating these things and asking questions and knocking on doors maybe. And as can we, if we need to. We have two representatives that live fairly close to this area. One in the Suffolk County legislature who is an environmentalist geologist, and another who is also trained in environmental biology, and Rebecca Cassay in the Assembly. So it might be a place to start with Steve Engelbright and Rebecca Cassay to start talking about this with them. I agree with you, Kyle. This is a lobbying initiative. It's more than just talking to a representative, but what's next is more consultation, conversation, feedback. Matt, do you have any questions about this?
Yes, I do. And the Kings Park project that you mentioned, Chris, where are they taking that material?
That material is being partially processed on the site, ground up, and turned into mulch, and then it's going to the contractor who's doing it owns several mulch yards, so he's bringing it to his facility, and then it's going out to being sold to the public and things like that after it's tested.
And the material that has to be removed from the site, where are you guys sending that?
That material, there's been very little of it. Some of it's gone to a wash plant, so there are a couple of wash plants on the island that are capable of taking it based on contaminant levels. Those do have dumping costs associated with it. So the wash plants will take the soil, basically take out most of the sand and gravel, then resell that, and then minimize the amount that has to be disposed of off the island.
So a lot of it's being done on site, and then they're taking it off and reselling it. Is that
Correct.
On the Kings Park facility?
Correct.
And that same model would be used here, theoretically?
I would recommend that if you went with reclamation, you get very aggressive on how you write an RFP that puts the burden on minimizing the overall cost to the contractor. So let them figure out how to recycle it and how to sell it and keep the cost down for the village.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, any further questions, comments? Chick.
Sounds like the political solution, or at least lobbying, is a good way to go. If we just take at face value what we have in the report, there's two things that I think should be added. Number one, I mentioned before, and that is establishing grades that would be safe in the excavated kettle hole. So if that involves bringing material in, of course it's based on assumptions because you don't really know until you remove the material, but you don't want to be surprised by that. And you can't have a greater than 1-on-2 slope that just remains. I don't think that's a great idea. And also, if you push material from around it, it's going to affect the golf course around it, the driving range, other areas, natural areas. So that should be looked at, I think, up front. And just to mention on alternative 3, management of stormwater is kind of the same thing, where if you haven't provided for managing the stormwater in the cap, you're really not controlling and addressing the entire scope of the project. I get the sense that that alternative is probably the least desirable, but it's something that I think needs to be looked at to honestly look at all of the alternatives.
Thank you. All right, this concludes our special presentation. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much. And please forward any questions you have and from the working group, and I'd be happy to
Thank you.
respond.
We will do. Take you up on that. Peter and Stephen, thank you for being here. David, Chick, Gil, thank you for being here. And now we're just going about the boring part of the agenda. You know. Wait, Matt's going to talk first, so wait for.
That wasn't boring. Take care, Jack. Thanks, Gil. I object.
All right, so next on our agenda, we had a presentation from the developer at the 450 Myrtle Avenue property when they were talking about how they were not married to the name of the development that they were proposing, and said that they'd be happy to entertain other names for the property. And so this is not really a, hey, let's vote on our favorite of this from this list that the clerk handed out earlier. But and I don't know if this is the best area or venue for this conversation, but we did want the board to take a look at the names that the developer put up on the slide and have some, discussions, think about it, see if you have any alternative ideas. I don't know if we talk to if you have any ideas about how to make a recommendation to the developer. So, throwing it out there for your feedback. How would you like to proceed with this? Would you like to take it home, think about it?
My advice would be, if the village is inclined to want to choose the name, let's choose the name. The longer we wait, because they have a marketing strategy, I'm sure, that they're going to want to start implementing well in advance of construction and applications.
Would it make sense that we submit like 3 choices, number them 1 through 3, and then whichever ones hit the target win? Or do you want to discuss each and every name they brought forward?
Well, based on council's advice, I think he's probably pretty accurate in his assessment. They're going to be meeting in front of the planning board.
I will tell you that
and
counsel for the applicant was almost here tonight with a party of people, probably naming experts, that we said, give the board the opportunity to review the names suggested. You don't need to appear. We don't need to have a naming ceremony or a party, quite literally.
Yes.
So I think we'd be doing ourselves an effort if anyone's inclined to throw one out there to start the discussion.
Okay, so consider the discussion started. Matt gave his feedback.
Harbor's Edge.
I like Harbor Haven only because it sort of, because it was Mary Haven, sort of keeps the Mary Haven name in. That was my choice out of the ones that were presented.
Apparently Moranville's out of the question.
Yeah, that was my second choice, but.
I'm fine with Harbor Haven.
Harbor Haven sounds good.
I don't like the whaler reference ones because it's not
Yeah.
wrong village.
Mm-hmm, right,
Right.
Yeah, point is used
right,
everywhere.
right. I eliminated that whole side of the sheet.
How about something like Harbor Cove? You like Haven because it has a
Because of
reflection
Mary
of
Haven,
Mary
yeah.
Haven. Mariners Haven? No. Haven is like,
Sounds like
it's a place to be. What?
I made a honeymooners joke.
It has a connotation. Notwithstanding Mary Haven, but if you
So
put
what'd you say?
another word in
Harbor
front of
Cove?
it, like Harbor Cove, if you put another word in front of Haven, like Mariners Haven, does that mean, if you look at Harbor Haven, is it a place where people go for respite? A haven of safety? Is that a connotation that safe haven? Or Heritage Cove?
I do like the recognition of Mary Haven in the name. So, if you want to change the harbor portion of it, but it would be nice to at least recognize Mary Haven.
Trying to think of what other word.
What about Heritage Haven? So heritage in terms of the acknowledgement of the historic.
That sounds very good.
I could, yeah.
works for me.
All right. We got it.
That's our recommendation.
Right.
Like, here you go.
Great.
Here.
All right, so Heritage Haven.
Okay. Next up are board reports. Why don't we start, Bob, with you?
Okay. All right, so between the DPW Parks and Recreation, the three words are leave, snow, and Dickens. All right, so leaf program is continuing. They are getting ready for snow, and they're also getting ready for Dickens. DPW, they're preparing the vehicles for snow. They helped out with the Santa Parade. The 30 barricades were put down for the parade. Branch program completed November 7th. Many piles were chipped and brought to the country club for use on the grounds there. Not put in the clean fill, though. Sidewalk project completed on November 21st. It was done faster than had been anticipated. It was completed with using CDBG funds. Bricks were removed free of charge, so we didn't pay for the removal of the bricks. And the DPW also placed some convex mirrors at various sites for safety so that you could see around hills and, dangerous intersections. Parks Department.
Sorry, did the one where Thompson meets Scraggy
No.
come in? Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's still missing. Parks Department, they conducted their daily cleanups at various village parks and beaches. They removed all the pink banners. They decorated the Dickens lanterns, and they hung the holiday decorations. The Recreation Department, ice skating has begun. They moved and relocated 32 Christmas trees to the village center for the Festival of Trees. Dickens Resident Night is Friday, the 6th, from 6 to 8:30, and Renee wanted me to remind the trustees, unfortunately, I'm not going to be there, but the trustees that have the village centers from 6 to 8:30 to go, and they could always use help distributing the coffee and the hot chocolate and the cookies. 4,300 people entered the village center in November. And Spring Street Gymnasium program is, they're going to be conducting open basketball, for adult open basketball, and that's going to begin on December 1st. Renee met with Port Jefferson's school district football coach about starting a flag football league for the 5th through 8th grades. That negotiation, or not negotiation, but those discussions are still going on. And she's already getting ready for the summer 26. She researched the feasibility of having a swim platform at East Beach, and she's already established a lot of the summer concert series. That's all been finalized, so there'll be more information about that, when it gets a little warmer. But she's already working on the summer things. I'm sure the mayor's going to be talking about this. We've been having a couple of meetings about the 250th birthday of the country and how the village will get involved in that. First event that we're going to be having is the whaleboat. We don't want to call it a launching. We're going to be calling it a whaleboat landing. That's going to be happening on May 2nd. We had meetings about Nick and Naomi Solo's photos and photo exhibits. The children have donated a lot of the photos that, if you knew Dick Solo, he was an avid photographer. And there was a lot of photos that he had that pertain to the village and the local community. So they're going to have a photo exhibit on January 22nd at the village center.
It's a conservancy event.
Thank you.
And we'll go back and forth on this.
Yeah,
Is fine.
I figured you. Yeah.
It's a conservancy event, and they're using it as a fundraiser of sorts, generating sponsorships and things like that. And so it's really to recognize, it's starting as a Founding Families of Port Jefferson annual event. It's kicking off with Naomi and Dick Solo, who's Naomi Solo, if anybody didn't know her, an amazing influence in the village, the original community relations person who did everything from support the village in its approach to securing the country club during that 1977-78 lead up to the vote of the village to purchase it, to establishing the Arts and Crafts show on East Main Street, the Arts and Crafts Fair on East Main Street. Naomi established, she worked hand in hand with Ron Carlson when he was the Parks and Rec director,
Mm-hmm.
to establish the first senior group activities, as well as establish the first teen center in the village. So,
And she was also a founding member of the Conservancy. So
yes, so really, really appropriate. And Dick was a faculty member at Stony Brook, correct? Music
Mhm.
department, I
I'm
want to
not
say.
sure what department.
But he took a lot of pictures at the university, including some of the great bands that played there and musicians that played there over the early days in the 70s, 60s, 70s, early 80s. And so part of that will be the exhibit is themed into 4 or 5 sections. And Dick's work at the university is one of them. And Naomi's work is, and all the things that she led in the village is another. Naomi was also the publicist for Danford's when the hotel was first built and started gaining traction in the village. So, founding family. So in the years to come, we'll be working with the Conservancy to hold very similar events for other founding families, and we'll take recommendations, ideas, but there's a lot of material to work with for sure. And working a lot side by side with Chris Ryan and the village historian, who is helping curate all this material, working with the Solos. I don't know if you know, Mike Solo is a trustee in the Village of Belterre as well. Julie is the Naomi and Dick's daughter, and she relocated into the Spring Street house where they grew up. And then, and David Solo, I graduated with David Solo. He's off in the world somewhere doing very impressive, high-profile things. But I think it's going to be a pretty...
Yeah. So that's
Visionary
January
event.
22nd, so
It'll be a
mark that date.
Save the dates. Will be going out soon.
Speaking of the Conservancy, the gala was a huge success, honoring Father Frank and Jim O'Connor. I haven't gotten a final word on how much was raised yet, but a good hunk of money was raised that will go towards refurbishing the
Stage.
the stage. That's the word I was looking for. The stage over at the Harborfront Park. Tree Committee, we actually met this morning to discuss possible code changes. We met with the building department and the village horticulturalist, talked about what we can do and what needs to be done to change the code around. So they'll be working on that. They'll be making recommendations, and then we'll be passing along to the board to and Dave as well, so that we can work that into the code. Their next meeting is next Wednesday at 7:30. The CAC discussed and made recommendations to the planning board about various referrals that it received. They've sent four pieces of correspondence back to the planning board regarding referrals, and they are not meeting in December, so the CAC will meet again in January. Parks and Rec Committee is meeting right now. They weren't able to reschedule their meeting. They're looking at, and they're reviewing and going to make recommendations for various improvements for the various village parks. Maybe working on long-term plans for parks within the village. And they're also working on a fee structure for the softball leagues. The CCE meeting tomorrow, presentation, Michael Swarting is going to be giving a presentation to the committee on that. And that's my report.
All right, can we go through the 250th activities as well?
Sure.
So this group that has been meeting is really made up of the not-for-profit partners in the village. It consists of representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, the Director of Operations, Barbara Ransom. Barbara Russell sat in on the first meeting. She's the Town of Brookhaven historian. And the Explorium had a representative there the first week. The Bayless Boat Shop, LISEC, that's how the whale boat's built into this whole programming initiative. We're talking about calendaring activities, requests for the whale boat, and there are quite a few. The calendar's filling up already, even though it's not even finished yet, but anticipating its completion in April or so for the landing in May, and then it's being booked. And right now, Mark Sternberg is working on an agreement, a license agreement for use of that whaleboat and borrowing of that whaleboat. I don't know if that's the right word, but it will require some interaction with Sylvia Yu and David Yu as well, because there has to be indemnification and insurance and all kinds of things. And also we're trying to determine what the right fee is for use, because it's going to cost the village. Everybody understands the nature of the relationship with the village and the whaleboat, right? There was an MOU agreed to in 2022 that was ratified it by the board, because it wasn't board approved, So we ratified it in 2023, and the LISEC group agreed to build it. Conservancy has funded portions of the costs. The village helped work on a grant from the Gardner Foundation to help complete the funding of the construction and the purchase of a trailer. And part 3 of this initiative is to create, design, and build a shed to protect the whaleboat so that it remains seaworthy. Because there were 2 other whaleboats that were built at the 200th anniversary of independence, and they're not seaworthy. Or 225th, I can't remember if it was 225 or 250. I mean 200.
I think it was 200. I think it was
So 50 years ago. So neither one of them are seaworthy. One's in Darien, Connecticut, and one is in Huntington. So the goal for this whaleboat is to maintain its seaworthiness and to continue using it as an educational piece for the Drowned Meadow Cottage Museum and the spy ring. And the name of the whaleboat is tentatively will be known as the Caleb Brewster. There will be that the landing is basically the moment when LISEC hands the title over to the village, basically. I mean, it's our boat, but some of the activities at these meetings the discussions have resulted in new relationships being built. Oh, so wait, Drowned Meadow Cottage Museum, right? I was going into who's LISEC. Drowned Meadow Cottage Museum. Help me here. Who's sitting at the table? The Conservancy, the Historical Society, Chamber, and
Village historian.
correct. Yep, the village historian, Fran Moshe, sits in on these meetings because we are working on a logo hero branding design for Port Jeff's role in bringing information forward and education related to Port Jefferson's role in the Revolutionary War. So Theater 3, correct, because I think we talked about this. This is ringing a bell for me now, is Theater 3 is working with Mark Sternberg. Mark Sternberg has a book in the works, and the first chapter is going, I think, right? The first chapter is looking like it's going to be a model for a one-act play that Theater 3, Jeffrey Sanzel and Doug Quattrock and some of the other folks there will start putting pen to paper and creating the one-act play from his first chapter of his book. But as we talked about the branding and the creation of a hero sort of brand for Port Jefferson's involvement, we looked at what other entities are doing, what the United States, what America is doing, what New York State is doing, what the town is doing, what the county is doing, and there's sort of a bonded hero brand to America 250. So the overarching title of the activities in Port Jefferson, it's because Suffolk County has Suffolk County 250, America 250 as well. So we're talking about Port Jefferson hyphen America 250, America 250, one word, and then some subcategories of taglines and things like that. So Gerard Gang and Fran Moshe and Jillian from the Conservancy are working together. Lisa and Gerard have offered from the Conservancy to work on the initial look and feel of it, and we'll work with Fran on implementing it through village materials, and possibly even licensing it for T-shirts and coffee mugs and things like that. So, what else? What else is there? So lots of talk about what else we can do. We actually discussed getting together with the school district and how can the school district get involved with the museum. And so Mark and Chris Ryan met with Jesse Rosen, who is an 11th grade social studies teacher who is like the Pied Piper of history at Port Jeff. And the kids really, really like him. He really relates to them. And he met with Chris and Mark, and they had a really good first meeting where whatever they end up doing, they're going to bring classes through the Drowned Meadow Museum and have some curriculum established and educational opportunities because, and this is the pièce de résistance, is in order to get funding for a lot of the things that this group wants to do, there has to be educational components to it. So we're working with the county on some funding. Mark and the team put together some language for some new Pomeroy signs. Pomeroy signs are those blue and yellow historic signs you see all over Long Island that are marking historic locations. So there was some Pomeroy signs written up, and Lisa Matto is working on some grant funding opportunities through, who's the funding for the Pomeroy? It's the Pomeroy Foundation. So, and that deadline is like this week, December 7th or something. So anyway, it's a fast turnaround. Hopefully, yeah. So talking about the Celia Strong old home. So one of the participants in the Spiring, Washington Spiring, actually lived on that parcel of land at the end of Oakwood Road where it meets Winston and Crystalbrook Hollow. And there's a porous roadway that goes to Crystalbrook cul-de-sac roadway. But in that area, that's where these people lived, and that's where they greeted the people on the whaleboats, bringing messages back and forth. And it really is an historic site. So Mark Sternberg is appealing to the different Pomeroy and different sort of historic and the village actually, to create this as an historic parkland called Strong Homestead Park. So yeah, really cool. And enacting the path to how the revolutionaries walked. They actually came from like the Cedar Beach area all the way around. So he wants to set up a walk run to to replicate that pathway. So a lot of great ideas and fun interactions, and it should produce pretty interesting several months. So it's really going to kick off in kind of April and run through the end of November. We talked about doing an event right in September, October. That is again, another conservancy photo exhibit of some of the more historic and poignant references to Port Jefferson's participation and influence in the outcome of the Revolutionary War. So Bob sits in as liaison to that group with his work with the Conservancy. So if anybody is interested in attending any of those meetings, please work with Bob to interact. But I'm pretty much a staple in those meetings. They are scheduled for Tuesdays. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock now, we talk about whaleboat and 250th. And I know it's in the middle of the day and it's difficult for some people to attend, but there's a really robust set of minutes and agendas from those meetings that we'll post up on the website. We'll ask Sylvia to put them in the trustees folder so that you can be read in on details and scheduling and things like that. Okay. So that was not my report, but we'll transition to you, Kyle. Go ahead.
So, code enforcement update. There were 9. This is for November. 9 online complaints were received. 6 were anonymous. As of 11:25, 11 incident reports prepared for complaints received via the code phone, which you can also text. 680 parking tickets issued for November, compared to 101 issued November of 2024. 1 field appearance ticket was issued for open alcohol. Code enforcement helped out with events covered: opening the ice rink, tree lighting, the Santa Parade, and the next one coming up is the Dickens Festival. And then public safety met this Monday, and a few recommendations that came out of that. One of the things we're looking at, this is not a recommendation yet, because of the U-turn issue at the ferry. Folks have been talking about putting those delineator sticks on the divider, but it might be tricky because when, 1, they get run over and you have to constantly fix them, but 2, when a car has a trailer that goes onto the ferry, they actually enter through the exit.
Yeah.
So depending on how far down you put those delineator sticks, now you have cars driving on the wrong side of the road for possibly a significant, if you want to make a no U-turn effective, you might create another problem. So homework on that one, but if folks have,
There was-
ideas on that,
There
please
was an
email me.
interesting idea, right? Was Scott put forward? Was it Scott Murphy?
Yeah.
About access through the Brookhaven Town Lot, which, so obviously that building's coming down,
Mhm.
right? And there's some planning that has to take place there, but that to me makes sense. Like, we should be trying to partner with the town to try and see if we can
Yeah.
reroute
Just get rid of that
access.
sidewalk or the curb is really the thing that's
Right.
the problem.
Enter through the town parking lot and come around that way. I don't know
Mhm.
what the traffic flow would look like, but it's certainly worth considering. And
Right, especially now because with the town, and Dave, I hope you're listening.
he's not here for this. He's our attorney right now. You have to keep the lines very clear.
But as far as a sticker, they don't have the people at the house anymore because you get the sticker. You can get the sticker online and everything. So they're not checking for that as you drive in, so people can drive in, go to the ferry. It
Yeah.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
is that hut even used for anything? That shed?
Yeah.
It's empty all the time.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. Another recommendation was to move the Thompson speed reader just across the street to measure the traffic going the opposite way.
Mhm.
Right now, it's pretty high compliance rate, but the outliers are extreme. It's like a 60-mile-an-hour outlier on there. And the residents are concerned that we're not picking up the more seasonal traffic incidents, which, of course,
Yeah,
we're not
yeah,
right now, but
yeah.
that's just the reality. So I'll email that to you. And then with the Brook speed reader, one of the things since we have those rubber speed bumps, I'm just curious if we can get enough, like how many do we actually have, and if there's any information that DPW can share on what does the installation look like? Is this like a 4-hour project? Is this more significant planning?
One day, less than
Okay.
no. Mm-mm.
Because I think one of the things the
But where?
the council would like to toward the top, because there is a speed bump at the bottom and you can't really put it on
Towards the
the
top
slope.
of Brook.
Yeah, so folks have to
Slow
slow
down.
down enough to go over the speed bump and then not be picking up speed, because the compliance rate's around 50%, which is very low for the speed limit there. But the speed limit is 15 miles an hour going
'Cause it's
downhill,
school district.
so
Yeah.
it's hard to. You can't even roll at the speed limit,
Right.
so you have to pump the brakes all the time, which folks should do. It is by the school. So I think the council is just looking for a better understanding of what the mitigation options are beyond just the.
So at our last meeting, the Officer John, was it? he did say, you know, send us that information, and they might assign a patrol car there.
Yeah, and since then I had sent it over to Officer Berry, the same data sheet that's in our work session packets, so that they can see. And she said that she would, you know, pass it on to the powers that be to make that part of their patrol check. But you know, that's
I mean, they did have a couple of units there on and off a couple of years ago, and it did have an impact, and it was residents that were the offenders.
yeah, it's always that in that road right there, it's always going to be residents.
So, you know, have the conversation with Greg, I guess, and see if that's an option because I think they have 2 of those rubberized speed bumps still in the maintenance, you know, DPW facility.
Okay. There was a question that came up on blocking the ferry boarding traffic, blocking the Danfords lot.
Yeah.
And the traffic engineers that live in the village that have said they'd, you know, opine on these kind of issues. They said it would be worth doing just because it probably wouldn't add too much more to the existing problem, and then at least allow folks to get
Doing the
out.
block the box?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't know if we want to. I'll email you that.
Is
as
that
well.
can we do that without board action? Is that a public hearing? A block?
Create a block.
Don't
Don't block the
Don't
box
block
for
the
the
box.
Danfers, and we really should do the village center as
I was
well,
gonna
since
say,
it's
yeah.
right there.
Your stop signs and other things are a product of the code. Do we have a code? First question, is it a village road?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Second question, do we have a code to enforce if they do block the box? It's more of a police issue.
It is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I would hate to put something out, again, if you're gonna bark, I always like to be able to bite.
Right.
So in that instance, I would have maybe a little more conversations with the Suffolk County Police to see if that's something they're willing to enforce. Because we can't enforce, we can't pull people over, we can't do that type of thing. So maybe in your next time you meet with the Suffolk County Police, Kyle, you could see if that. I would anticipate that they would certainly support us in that venture, but to do something in advance of that. But I would put something in the village code that suggests on any village street or you can't block any crosswalk box, whatever we're calling it, and have those, Suffolk County write those tickets returnable to our justice court.
So then we can make it a code. We make it
It already exists, I'm sure it already exists in the VTL somewhere that you can't block a crosswalk. But they, they write that summons and it goes to traffic court in Hauppauge, and then, not that we need to see a dime of that because we care about compliance, but it's always better to keep matters of local enforcement local, in my opinion.
Okay.
Specifically if it's residents doing it, because then they feel the shame of being in court and seeing their neighbors. and-
This one's probably more.
Visitor.
Yeah.
You never know.
I mean, it'll be both, for sure. And then the last one was the council recommended switching to Regroup, which is the contractor for the alert system, for several reasons. One, after looking at them all, and Supervisor Flamia helped facilitate this, and I'll talk more about that after, but we met with a whole bunch of vendors to look at how the product works, what are the capabilities of it, and then, of course, the cost. And Regroup was the most user-friendly, the most affordable, and had all the bells and whistles that all the more expensive ones would have. So that was the recommendation from
Can we
Supervisor
brand it
Fleming.
ourselves? Can we self-brand?
I don't know that offhand. I have to double check what we call it.
Uh-huh.
I will get back to you on that.
That
Yeah,
sounds
'cause I
good,
know the
promising.
Code Red could not, which is,
Right.
like-
And there's an
Block
update
Parade,
on
Block Street for a Parade
Does
is
the board
not
know
Code
about
Red.
Code Red?
Yeah.
What happened? Okay.
Don't talk about. Okay.
On the advice of counsel.
Got it. Yeah.
We had no notifications of that.
I see. But I do want to just thank Supervisor Flamia for all his work on this. Like, he really ran this down, really knew what he was talking about. And I think there was, I can't remember, I think it might have been Sylvia on one of these, that it was really great to see him in his element, because he's such a Homeland Security professional, and he just knew all the features of these products. So it was really quite impressive. But he really did his due diligence and worked really hard, and really, talked to plenty more vendors than would be required by our own rules and laws. And I think it's really great, because we are going to get hopefully a great user-friendly product that is end up going to be more affordable than
That's
what
great.
we were having before
Thank you.
by like a couple $1,000s.
What's next step? What's the next step there? For if we do we
Switch vendors.
yeah.
So we would have a resolution on the meeting.
Is your mic on?
So at our meeting on the 17th, we would have a resolution. I think there was a choice of whether we want 1 or 3 years, right? Whether we want to commit for 1 or 3 years. In the last
Okay.
email today or yesterday, it was quite a bit cheaper if we commit to the 3. Okay, so I sent that over to the treasurer and just working with him to make sure that's feasible. So if the group is comfortable with committing to the 3, it probably makes more financial sense for us.
Makes a lot more financial sense.
So we save a few $1,000s, like almost
Get a year free.
it's a year free. It was $2,000. If I remember well, it's $6,000 over 3 years.
Yep.
And then for the 3 years, we save $2,000, which is a year free.
And I'm assuming that it falls outside of our procurement policy, and we don't need to send it out for bid or get 3 quotes.
One quote's enough.
Okay, just want to make sure.
No, it's right in it. It's fine.
If you could please send me the, Trustee Hill, if you could please send me the recommendation
Sure.
from the PSAC, so we'll get it right onto the 17th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there like a contract or something that we have to, an agreement of some kind?
I'm sure that they have a
Yeah,
pro
it'll
forma
be-
that, yes. That will
I mean,
then-
they didn't recommend a contract. Like, we didn't look at a proposed contract and
Right.
make a recommendation on that. It was just the.
It's just the vendor.
So far, we're on the
Yeah.
proposal.
But so I'm asking Sylvia, we would need
There will be an agreement, yes.
and there's not many days between now and December 17th. Just knowing how the wheels of contracts turn slowly. And not because we don't want them, it's not our fault, So, okay.
That's it for me.
Matt.
Okay. We met on the 20th. We're still waiting for a response from the MOU that we sent over to the school district. Waiting for their response on that. I-
So I have an update for you.
Oh, good.
Because Renee reached out to me today, Lemmerman, because
Okay.
Renee does a lot of work with the school athletic director to get space and things like that. There's a couple of snafus over the past couple of days that became just challenging for Alex, like to he was scheduled to have a pickleball class or something, but they had to cancel the class because there's a concert or something like that.
Mhm.
So I think it might have spurred the administration to reach out to Renee to say, let's set a meeting so we can actually come up with a real solid memorandum or agreement in terms of how to share space. So Adam Sherrard asked Renee to work on setting up a meeting, and so that meeting is in process of being worked on to be set up.
Okay.
So I think Trustee Grinsky was aware of that. She even did she mention that she ran into the superintendent, Schmidtjan?
She did not.
And she's been filled with family emergencies, Zena. So
Understand.
yeah. But I think she's going to reach out to you and see if that's a meeting that you would participate in.
Sure. So that was the first thing. The second, the group would like to reach out to the school district about reintroducing continuing education at the school district using the facilities. So we're in the initial process of that, kind of developing a plan to present to the school district. So a few of the members of the group are going to develop a strategy and then present it to the board and present it to the school to see if we can start with some continuing education for older adults in the community. So they said
Nice.
they used to do it. They'd like to start that again. I was supposed to coordinate with Zena, but obviously she has a lot going on, to meet with Jake at the golf course for the sign for the Royals, home of the Royals at the golf course. We want to get that initiated, but I want to meet with Zena and Jake just to kind of figure out what size sign so I can bring it back to the group. And then the school STEM team is going to make that sign. I had mentioned that before. I'm also going to meet with one of the members of the group with the Royal Foundation. We had discussed that earlier about having them grant us the money. We're going to fill out some grant applications with them so they can pay for the signs that we'd like to have placed around the village. We discussed it at the prior meeting. And just a few other things just to acknowledge the school district. The girls volleyball won the county championships. Amazing. Michaela Pollard set the record for kills at the high school. And Ava Riley broke the 1,000 assist mark at the high school. So congratulations to the both of them. Also, it's been a really fun month. Cross country boys and girls won the county championships. It's back-to-back championships for the girls, and it's 9 times in a row for the boys. So congratulations to all of them. And that's a short report.
Just Ward Melville's boys football team won their. Was it the county champion? Was it they beat William Floyd or something like that?
I believe they won the county championship, yes.
So I bring that up, one, because some of those kids live in Port Jefferson Village, but maybe not the team or whatever, but Port Jeff has some residents who go to the 3 Village School District. But one of our employees is the quarterback on that team. So Sharon Philbrick's son.
What's
So
his
I
name?
think it's I want to say he's one of our lifeguards.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
so he works for the beach. And
Wow, that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's
pretty
amazing.
incredible. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. What else? You had said something about a sign. So if the who did you say was going to make it?
The STEM team
Okay.
at the high school was going to make it, but we kind of want to get the parameters. So we wanted to speak to Zena and meet with Jake, kind of find a location, see what size the sign wanted to be. And you actually had a nice idea to add the prior championships to the sign. So we discussed that also. So I'm going to wait for Zena to get
Maybe
some-
Fran can help design it,
Yeah, that would be fine.
and
Sure.
then so as long as we don't we meet our own sign codes,
Sure.
that's a standard. Which the signs are beautiful if we meet our sign codes.
Just want to find a location, get sizing, and then we'll figure out,
Mhm.
design, things like that.
Okay. Couple things, some interesting news we got this week. We heard from the Empire State Development folks about our downtown revitalization grant application, and we've been invited to present on December 17th our application. It is a 15-minute discussion with 15 minutes for Q&A. So it's the 17th in Melville in their offices in front of the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council representatives. So we're planning through that. I'm talking to a bunch of people. The planning board folks have some insights. VHB is going to help us, and also no one outside consultants can be present at that meeting. It's only village representation. So I've asked Dan Gross to attend. I've invited Josephine to sit in. I'm talking to other mayors who have been through the successful process of receiving a DRI. And so, fingers crossed, it's a positive step. It's positive.
That's good.
Yeah. Next up, the local waterfront revitalization planning process for the town of Brookhaven, North Shore area. They've formally asked us to provide input to their planning process. There's a Zoom meeting on December 15th that we've been invited to. If any trustees would like to participate in that meeting, I can provide the details. But mostly what I would really like to have from trustees and others is ideas. If you have ideas for, we talked about this in a prior meeting, right? And there's resources. Yeah, the jetty. That's one of them, and the letter went out. But if there's anything else that you see in the village of Port Jefferson that could benefit from planning initiatives, take a look at their website, the town's website, where the links and the restriction, the parameters of the planning process exists. And if you see ideas, opportunities for improvements, things like that on town property where we could partner with them as a co-applicant or whatever, would love to have your feedback on that.
We should show them our climate action plan.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
My mic was off, but I said we should show them our climate action plan, which would turn their parking lot into a park. So
Well, speaking of that parking lot, the bid met on Monday night, Tuesday night, last night. And so they are talking about creating a seed fund for a seed grant for a team of engineering students at Stony Brook University to see if they want to help come up with structural design for a parking garage. So we're going to be, Suzanne Velasquez, who's on the bid and on the chamber, she reached out to the dean of the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences and who expressed interest in meeting with a team to talk about that, to see if, the initial funding discussion is $10,000 for this seed grant. And so we'll start having that conversation with them. And Michael Schwarting had generously provided to the bid and at my request the drawings and the plans that they created 10 years ago or so for a parking facility, a structured multi-level parking facility that was targeted to be in the area where Mariner's Lot is right now. That's behind the old Gap building. So, there's a real interest in the prospect of a parking garage, and that was one of the considerations of the town to say where would our people park. I don't know if that's the solution for that, but how do we better utilize the space right up against the marina outside of a parking lot? So that's something to think about and help them visualize maybe from Port Jefferson's perspective. James from the bid will come in and present the bid's budget on the 17th of December. All right, for board awareness and consideration. It's an annual activity. Are we voting on a bid member tonight? Is that a resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We received a signed, approved contract from the county, and I've signed it as well, on the Endura Blend project, which is a Endura Blend is a specific technology material that is used to elevate and highlight crosswalks and lining and street lining and stuff like that. That was the original proposed grant. The original grant approved the EnduraBlend technology. We just haven't had any luck finding the EnduraBlend technology. And our new DPW superintendent had mentioned that the thermoplastic technology is just as good. And the grant itself was to cover the costs of up to 18 crosswalks on village-owned roadways, and which were identified and meets and bounds provided, et cetera, et cetera. And also the installation of such technology. And what we learned from our DPW superintendent is that our DPW can actually install the technology and save us quite a bit of money on the labor. And therefore, the amount of money that is funded in this grant is how much? Is it 39,000 or is it double that? 39,690. And the village is responsible for 30. That was my question. The whole project is 80. So the village is half of it, 40, and the bid is 20 and the chamber's 20. So Lisa Matto, our grant writer, went back to the county and asked if it would be okay to remove the application aspect of the grant and turn it all into supply. And they said yes, so we redid the contract, I re-signed it, and we're coming back with it. I don't know how much money it's going to save us, but it's actually going to enable us, I think, to go up to 18 crosswalks. And we have the funds for that.
When it comes time to finding the funds, I will find the funds to do it.
But it's also labor, right? So
Yes.
we're eliminating the labor,
Right.
and that's in kind. So if the bid is 20 and the chamber is 20, and our portion of it is, reduced to labor, let's see how much thermoplastic material we can buy, right? And so it's really great to have Greg here, who is familiar with these products, and we'll work with our crew leaders and our crews to install the product sooner than later. I think he's going to install a pilot to make sure that a test to make sure that it's good.
Sorry, I just don't understand. What does it do to improve the crosswalks?
It lights it up,
Lights it up, got it.
yeah.
Okay, so
It's
like
reflective,
reflective. Got
yes,
it, okay.
yeah,
It just draws attention to the
yeah. And they're so faded now anyway, so it's
Yeah.
hard to see them. So it's the crosswalks. There's a bunch of them, but you see the crosswalks in the intersection at East Main Street and East Broadway,
Yep.
across from Village Center. All those types of crosswalks will be addressed. So I don't know, Stephen, if this is in your report, but you had informed the building department that the cash bond account has approximately $290,000 in it. Can you update this board on that development?
Yes, there was, so whenever there's a cash bond put down from a building permit, to get that kind of work done, it goes into a trust account. And I worked with the building department on it. There was a substantial amount of money in there, some of which was very old. I think 190,000 of it went back from like 2020 and prior. And the building department has been working, I think they've gone through the entire Excel sheet that was provided to them and figured out all of the, what needs to go back, who's expired, where there's an issue, and we're gonna be working to try and return funds that should be returned, and then also get some applicants that did not close out their building permits to now do so. They're working on having that done. Because you can't get your bond back unless you've closed out your building permit. And checking if COs were issued, because if a CO was issued, the money should have been returned. So they've gone, I believe Parker went through the entire report, and there's gonna be a list, and a number of those bonds are gonna be returned and have already started putting together the paperwork to do so. So anything that we can't locate, we're going to do our best to figure out who the ownership of that paid that money is, so that we can get it back to that applicant. Otherwise, it'll have to go to the state through unclaimed funds.
So that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we're in the beginning stages, according to the building department, of reaching out to property owners with open and expired permits in an effort to renew and close them out. So these go back for decade and longer too. So they're just open permits that were never closed out. So that's, Josephine is doing a great job with the building department trying to sort out all these open-ended loose ends. So Dan Gross has been advocating for a GIS system that would be particular to Port Jefferson, as we've expired our use of the Suffolk County GIS system. So there's a fee associated with that, and I think it's an important fee. It will come before this board to review and approve, but also a new computer would be necessary for that system as well. So I don't know if he's spoken with you about it, Stephen, but he's been speaking about it a lot. So, and we caught up with him yesterday, so he'll be working with Sylvia and yourself on any resolution and to find out if there's an opportunity for funding of that and where that would come from. So what else is the bid doing? Actually, Trustee Ugrinsky came to the bid meeting last night because she wanted to follow up on her promise to the community to start looking at, the parking questions about how parking will be configured next year, fees, et cetera, timing. So that painful conversation started again last night. And, one of the aspects she made very clear in the discussion was that parking is budgeted through this fiscal year. And we have been able to facilitate the changes, the turning off of the meters, the enforcement suspension through March 31st, and then whatever was configured for the rest of the budget year will remain configured that way, but the approach will be to work on what it is that actually is needed as the budget process starts for next fiscal year, which is starting now, right? Okay. So that was an update. The bid is kicking off they're having their ice festival. I think that's in your announcements, Sylvia, but they're seeking sponsorships. They've gotten a few sponsorships from Mather Northwell, from Stony Brook, and from possibly the Jito Group, I believe. But they're looking for enough sponsors. It's an expensive proposition to run the ice festival. The bid puts $30,000 in and looks for $30,000 in sponsorships, and that's how expensive it is. So they've been really working hard with retailers in the commercial districts and restaurants to really activate some of the events and activities that are going on. I don't know if you all saw the lighting ceremony at Chandler Square. That was hugely successful for them, and the commercial the people in Chandler Square are extremely proud of what they were able to do. They're very grateful to the person who owns Chandler Square, the Jim Tunis and the Northwind Group. No, Jim Tunis and the management there. But also, it should be known that the brewery is shutting down. They're closing that business. The business owner, proprietor is leaving. So, but not until after the new year. So that's unfortunate. But when one door closes, a window opens, or when a window closes, a door opens, or something like that. But, you know, the brewery has been a staple in the village for 15 years, and it's a, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but it's a place where people gather, great bands perform. And it's kind of iconic in that area, and there's hope that new proprietors come in and do something with it, whatever that might be, a tasting room, something like that. But there's a lot of talk going on about it, so we'll miss Mike Philbrook and his people. All right, I think that's all I've got, but why don't we go, Sylvia, to your report?
Oh, can I actually? I just have a question. They included all these regulations related to swimming pools, so I was just curious, what prompted that?
In the report, right? So, like I said, Josephine's doing a lot of work on, codes and zones and zoning and things like that. So, she is. If you look at number 3 in her report, she said, we've started an ongoing project to update and refine the current building and planning department forms, create new forms to detail, and that is an example of such.
Got it.
Yeah, just to
Okay.
give you an example of, take a look at what they're dealing with. The sign code is one. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of codes that Josephine, she's eager to
Update and revamp.
tangle with.
Mm-hmm.
We're like one at a time. Let's deal with this one at a time, because it is a lot. But she isn't wrong. The whole fee schedule, she's working on for building and planning, because it's inequitable. It's not current and it's not modern, and the department's doing a lot of work for the applicants that should be done by the applicants. So we're kind of sort of right-sizing that a little bit. In terms of, so I can update you on this, Senior Planner Dan Gross is looking at examining other staff reports. I don't know if you've all been, I know I've seen you all in meetings for the zoning Board of Appeals and Planning. Well, I'm not sure if I've seen you there, Matt, but you might have, you can catch them on YouTube. But the staff reports in their entirety have been like pages and pages and pages of documentation, and it's not the norm for the staff to put together such detailed review and evaluations. So between Dan and Josephine and Sylvia and myself and others, we're kind of like trying to, and talking to the planning board itself, do you need this level of detail, especially if you get it the day before?
Right.
And can the applicants actually put together a narrative of their application? What are they doing? Why do they need it? What do they want? What's their goal? And so it's not up to interpretation by our planning department to look at it. So they're reworking, sort of refining what the planning board needs for its evaluation of, and they're finding some good success and some welcome conversations and discussions on what it is that the planning board is expecting and what would help them. Because I'll just to step back into history, planning boards in Port Jefferson didn't have planning staffs for a very long time. And they looked at the material by themselves,
Right.
made decisions and evaluations and that kind of thing. And we're not suggesting that. Planning department is in good hands right now with Dan and Parker as the aide, and Cindy Suarez and Josephine working alongside them, and et cetera, et cetera. But how can we streamline and make our process more efficient? And so they're looking at it with a new set of eyes. So, okay. Sylvia?
Thank you. So lots happening in our vibrant village over the next few months.
Can you put your mic closer to you, please?
Sorry. Over the next few months, we have a reindeer scavenger hunt that started on the 27th of November and runs through January 3rd. That's village-wide. The Festival of Trees, again, through January 2nd over at the Village Center as usual. We have a holiday window decorating contest, which goes through January 2nd, village-wide. Kids Night Out, December 11th from 5 to 7:30, and the first one tomorrow night on the 4th.
That is specifically the Village Center.
Yes.
The Village Center is hosting events for parents so parents of kids from 1st to 5th grade can have playtime while parents go shopping and hang out in the village. And this was an initiative working with the Retailers Association to foster. So, yeah,
It's a nice
that's
break.
what that is, yeah.
Thank you. Residents' Night, as we know, is on the 5th. We have Luminary Nights on the 5th, 12th, and 19th. Dickens, we know, is the 6th and 7th. There is a Naughty or Nice Pajama Bar Crawl. On December 13th from 2 to 6, there are 17 village locations participating. The Lantern Lighthouse Tour is on the 13th from 3 to 8. And the Ice Festival is January 31st through February 1st. There's a rain date on that one. That's the 14th and 15th of February. So to get to my report, I will not go through the entire list, but again, once our work ends here at this meeting, work starts for the clerk's office and everyone affiliated with it. So we have all the follow-through on the action items from our last meeting. One thing I didn't mention in my report, which is a follow-through and ongoing project, is that yesterday I spent several hours with Jen Hildreth over at our maintenance facility / records storage area. And we identified, one of the things we did is we identified, I think it's 149 boxes of records that are specific to the court. So those were all detailed in writing with dates of information for each box. And that information was given to Elizabeth Kidney because the court has special above and beyond requirements over the records retention schedule, and anything that is destroyed for court records needs to go through its own special process, which in the past, Elizabeth informs me, is actually not an onerous process and shouldn't take a long amount of time. So assuming that we can have approval on this as early as next week, we intend to call the shredding company that's used by the town of Brookhaven to come to our location and take those boxes. Another thing that we did was we were able to segregate by topic / department a number of the remaining boxes up in the facility. Not all of them, but a number of them. We intend to do more work on Friday. For example, we now have all election-related materials in one area and all treasurer-related materials in another area. So it was quite the undertaking. So just wanted to let you know that that project is moving.
What's next there?
What's next there is that we're scheduled for this Friday or Monday to go again and revisit the boxes that we segregated to see which of those are available for shredding. So,
Are you taking pictures?
yes, we will. Yes, we will.
Otherwise, no one will
Thank you for the
realize
reminder.
and
We'll believe us.
in
We'll
you,
believe us.
believe what you've been doing. How crazy it is.
Thank you for the reminder. There's a lot of fun things that we found. So we do have 6 resolutions for approval this evening. There was one add-on earlier today. Unless there are questions on my report, I'd like to proceed with those. Are there any questions? No? Thank you. So we have resolution number 12325, which is a resolution appointing Karen Sullivan as the trustee appointment to the Business Improvement District Board of Directors. May I have that motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 12325 is a resolution adopting the attached bond resolution, which is attached to the treasurer's report, authorizing the issuance of bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $500,000 to finance the construction of improvements to the retaining wall on the north side of East Broadway between Grant Street and Cliff Road. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion? Anybody have any questions about this? This
I
is-
don't, but we should just do it brief.
Just to
Yeah,
explain.
explainer of
yeah.
what this is for folks at home.
So this is an emergency action that needs to take place to correct the leaning tower of retaining wall on East Broadway. And, it's really leaning into the roadway, and there are trees up there, and our engineers and the construction company has been working with our engineers on the job, put together a plan to install a steel sheet of a certain number of feet to, first they have to excavate it out, then they install the steel sheet, and they put a concrete cap over it, much like the retaining wall down on, I'm going to say, the Christobrook Hollow cul-de-sac, where it has the timber, timber walking over it, but this would be concrete. So it's a lot of work. It's going to shut the roadway down during the day for several weeks. They're going to actually provide us with an alert trailer that says, expect roadway to be closed from XYZ from between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. It'll open up back up during the night, and early mornings. It's not going to be closed 24/7. But it will require a rerouting. It will require some communication with the school district, with the hospitals, and with others in our community to let them know that this is happening and they need to plan for it. So, I think the answer was they are closing the roadway down during the day. Or will they keep it half open?
I think it
No.
was a partial.
I thought, I asked that question. I thought they said it had to be closed.
Had to be
Fully-
closed, right?
Fully closed?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
That was the discussion.
So, and that's the detail. They've already taken some of the trees down on the grade.
Slope, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Mhm.
any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's a borrowing. That's a band, right? That's a bond? What is it?
Yes, we're going to ban the funds
Mm-hmm.
so we can get the project started and have the funds immediately come in after. So
And then it's gonna take a little bit to get the material. We don't know how long, but it won't be available immediately, so.
Do we need 4 votes on that?
yes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Actually, thank you. Actually, it should be a roll call vote. So, thank you for saying that. Starting with trustee Franco, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Nice.
Thanks.
Well done, Bob. Thank you. Resolution number 12325, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to create a new capital fund expense line item to be known as H5110.21, East Broadway Retaining Wall Project, to record expenses associated with the construction of improvements to the retaining wall on the north side of East Broadway between Grant Street and Cliff Road. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 412325, resolution approving the funding of construction improvements to the retaining wall on the north side of East Broadway between Grant Street and Cliff Road by authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget amendment number 112 as follows. Increase revenue for line item H 5710 serial bonds by $500,000 and increase expenses for line item H 5110.21 East Broadway retaining wall by $500,000. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 12325. Resolution approving the attached resolution authorizing the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Port Jefferson to submit an application for the 2025 New York State DEC Invasive Species Grant Program Round 5 and authorizing Mayor Shepro to sign all corresponding required paperwork on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson, and that should read Round 4, please, on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions and/or, Mayor, would you like me to read the resolution into the record?
Sure.
Thank you. Appendix C, a resolution of the Incorporated Village of Port Jefferson to set aside funds for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Invasive Species Grant Program Round 4, 2025. Whereas the Incorporated Village of Port Jefferson desires to apply for grant funding in an amount not to exceed $250,000 in financial assistance through the 2025 New York State DEC Invasive Species Grant Program, a reimbursement grant involving 25% match in kind or local cash and a 3-year contract. And whereas the application/bid proposes funding for terrestrial and aquatic invasive species rapid response and control measures for Mill Creek, and whereas the Invasive Species Grant Program is a critical part of the state's commitment to combating the spread of invasive species that can cause significant damage to our municipalities, parks, trails, farms, and agricultural crops, as well as our natural resources, wildlife, and ecosystems. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Port Jefferson approves and endorses the application/bid for the 2025 DEC Invasive Species Grant Program Round 4, 2025, and recognizing this is a reimbursement grant that will require all funds to be paid upfront by the Incorporated Village of Port Jefferson prior to reimbursement requests of the New York State DEC, and that the village commits to passing a budget of 25% match funding to support this project. And just as a note, if I may, the reason that we worded in sentence 1 not to exceed $250,000 is because that's the maximum that we can apply for. Not knowing yet exactly what's required money-wise, that's why it's worded that way. Okay, so thank you for that. We have a motion and a second.
So one more piece of information, which I didn't participate in this walkthrough, but Peter Scully and Christine Yasso and Bob Larrabee and who else was on that walk?
Christine, Bob.
Was Greg on that walk? They walked through the whole Mill Creek from start to finish, and Peter remarked on how knowledgeable Bob is on every single foot of that property, every single foot. He was truly impressed. But, Laura Schwarnoff.
Laura was there.
From GEI, the landscape expert and environmental and landscape expert engineer. And so that was, and Lisa Matto also did that walk. So our grant writer. And so she's putting together the grant application for this, and it will supplement the Suffolk County Jumpstart grant that we have for Mill Creek cleanout and help cover off on some of the other expenses that might not be covered. They're even talking about potentially bulkhead repair, because if you walk down there, you look behind the softball field, it's in pretty good disrepair. So that's the scope is undetermined right now. It's in process, working with the 4 folks that I mentioned. But that's what the grant application is about. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 12325, resolution authorizing a settlement agreement dated November 26, 2025, and authorizing Mayor Shepro to sign the settlement agreement on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. There are several, at this point, resolutions for our meeting on the 17th, and I'm sure there will be more to come. There was an addition today. The second resolution that you see is an amendment to an existing agreement that we have in place with GEI. GEI is asking for additional funding not to exceed $1,500 within a 30-day period, pre-approved by the village, in order to be of additional assistance to our Citizens Commission on Erosion and to interact and ask and answer questions that are posed to GEI.
Just a little bit more background on this. We asked GEI to put together a summary of the expenses that they've incurred in their work responding to questions from the Citizens Commission on Erosion directly and interactions therewith. And so they provided us with a document. And Matt, you were at the meeting that we discussed this last Friday, a couple Fridays ago. So in their calculation, they put in about $4,500 worth of work related to just specifically interactions to respond to questions from Citizens Commission. So their request was initially to pay us, reimburse them for that. And that wasn't the intent. So they removed that aspect of it. But going forward, they want to cover off on expenses as incurred to not to exceed $1,500 in any single billing cycle without village consent. So we're going to do everything we can to maintain the interactions with GEI to structured situations where they have standing meetings related to the project and maybe invite representatives from the Citizens Commission on Erosion into those situations, so we're not incurring additional costs. And
I don't know if it's allowed on GEI's end, but I do think answering the questions that the Citizens Commission on Erosion poses is only going to help build confidence in the project.
Yep.
And only with enough confidence from the residents in the project will it ever happen. And only will GEI make a lot more money if the project happens. So I would encourage them to consider the wider picture of things before they bill us for questions from the commission. If that can be done.
Good point.
so, all in favor?
Yeah.
I mean, that's agreed. And the Citizens Commission has asked questions that have been very helpful to the advancement of knowledge and, quality of product, as has Hayduck. So, I don't disagree. All in favor? Did we vote? Yeah.
No,
We did?
No, that's for next time.
That's the
Oh,
next
it's
time.
for next-
I thought you were
All right.
joking.
No, shoot, I
I
lost.
thought we were,
I lost myself.
Does anyone vet the questions? Because, listen, we
Yes.
see, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure
Yes.
that,
Yes.
They're very fair. They really are. I don't think anything is beyond the pale.
No, and I can respond to some of the questions based on my historic and institutional knowledge of things. Where it comes down to the real engineering questions of this specific design, like Hayduck can answer some of the questions as well. But yes, we work hard to, yeah. Okay, anything else, Sylvia, on that?
No, Mayor, thank you. That actually concludes my report unless there are additional comments or questions.
I'll be good.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen?
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to all of the updates that I provided in my report, I have a number of follow-up items that I wanted to speak on. The first one is that just today sent out preliminary budget information to the department heads. This included past history of what the adopted budget was versus what was actually spent, what their requests might be, and also provided them with an expense update for this year with possible projections on how they're doing based on what was budgeted from June through November versus what they actually spent, so that they can kind of see the trends on individual expense lines and compare that to previous years so that they can make informed decisions. And then I'll be sitting down, once they've had a chance to digest the information, I'll be sitting down with each department head and going over, likely with the Commissioner of Finance, to go over their initial requests and to work through the process and help them and give them whatever tools that they need to come up with a budget that we can work with. So that happened today. I've also, this week, I renewed our sam.gov registration. That has to be done annually. I don't know about anybody else here, but there's about 1 million spam emails that go out telling the village you have to renew your SAM registration. Just for this board to know, the sam.gov sends one email out, likely a month before you have to renew it, and it's always going to be in December, which is where we've been typically renewing it. So that is done. So if you get anything in your email spams, you can ignore it. Worked with the grant administrator to submit 2 requisitions for to be reimbursed on FEMA project 4615, which is the recharge basin. That goes back to 2021 IDA. So we're requesting the remainder of what was allocated, about $126,000, to complete that grant project out. Also submitted our first requisition to DISHES for the hazard mitigation grant program, which is 4480, just under 100,000. So both of that happened.
Which grant is that, 4480?
That's the FEMA 4480, the hazard mitigation grant that was given to LKMA, that they're working on the initiatives for flood reduction studies. So we've, just through the end of October, had about 108,000 in expenses, so we're being reimbursed 90% on that.
Just a really quick note on that grant particularly is the engineers are sending out letters to, well, I'm sending out a letter, actually. I signed a letter to go out to properties who have had experienced damage, flood damage. And so it's a survey that they're doing to sort of quantify the effects of flooding, financial effects of flooding to the commercial district, to residents who live in the flooding zone where their study is focused on. So there's a bunch of properties that they're going to be inquiring about to get some estimates about how much it costs, and that's part of the process of their study, so that they can quantify how much the village will need to kind of protect, to plan for mitigation, flooding mitigation. So they're closing in on their last pieces of information that they're compiling. So this is part of it.
In addition, I've also started preparing the CHIPS reimbursement for 2025. That's due in February. We've paid for the actual road work, and for anybody, just as a reminder, they did Brook Road from Old Homes. Is it Old? No, it's Old Post Road down to Caroline. California, the half that is between, I don't know the name of the road, starts with a G, from West Broadway up to that first intersection. They did that part of California on the slope that was
Glenwood?
in bad shape. Say it again.
It's after Owasco's the first
Right.
left, and then the next one is.
Is it Glenwood?
Glenwood.
Or is it Canterbury?
Yes, Glenwood. Yes, Glenwood, that's it. And also Highlands. They did a large portion of Highlands up to North Columbia
So
Street.
tell the story about how we saved $20,000 on striping. You don't know that one? I thought you knew. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you.
No, I know,
So
which is great news, by the way. So it's
DPW got an estimate from the our contractor who did the paving, who goes to a subcontractor because somehow they forgot to include striping in their bid, in their quote.
Yeah.
Somehow. I don't know how anybody forgets to put striping in a paving quote, but no offense to anybody. Things happen, I guess. But so we went back out to them, and they came back from their subcontractor with an estimate of $30,000 to stripe Highlands, Brook, and California. And so Greg was like, wait a minute, that seems high, So he goes back, and it's like, that seems high. And he's like, oops, I made a mistake. It's $9,000. You didn't hear that story?
no. I just saw the end result.
That was department head. Well, that's where it first was revealed, and then it came back, and yeah, so that was another huge, anyway. Continue, please. I thought that was an important little anecdote.
Before we continue, if we can go back a minute
Yeah?
to the retaining wall. So we allocated the money on an emergency basis through the resolutions. And when did they plan on starting, and who's doing the work?
That's Beauvais. We have a quote from Beauvais Industries that Hayduck got the quote on. They have to order the supplies, but their mobilization would be as soon as they're able to start getting the material.
I'm sure you could foreshadow my next question, which is usually one I ask. It's a $500,000 project, and we're just awarding it without procurement.
It's from the procurement aspect. We're doing this as on an emergency basis, which is why it needs to get done immediately. We have, I believe the engineers have stated as such that we need to move forward. I do think there should be a resolution awarding it to Beauvais to get the work done because it's $500,000 worth of work. The bond resolution authorizes the funding.
What makes it safe tomorrow, I guess, is my question.
That's been my question, but the fact of the matter is we can't do anything until we have the money. I've been asking that, if it's an emergency, why aren't we just, but you can't be reimbursed through a borrowing if you start the work before you get the approval to borrow.
I'm aware, but we have a greater obligation, right, to protect the health and safety. And it's an emergency, and if our engineer has declared it an emergency, I'm gonna go stand under it. You know what I mean? So what do we?
Are you saying we should close the road now?
I'm saying that we should take some type of precaution, like we did with the other retaining wall, that at least alerts people to a potential hazard.
There are barrels there.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that, because it's a lot of money, and being in government, I understand that people who do this type of work pay attention to when multi-million-dollar, $500,000 projects get awarded without proper procurement. I just want to make sure that everyone's comfortable that we're waiting for material to come in and declaring an emergency. And is there something that the engineer of Beauvais could do tomorrow to help secure it? And these are questions I would be asking.
If we needed a resolution to award the contract to Beauvais, we need a resolution tonight to do that.
It's kind of my point.
Yeah.
And then the emergency is we need to do it tonight because they need to get the
They
material.
won't start working until they have a contract. So if I can't sign something by board approval, we can't get them to start working. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Are you writing up the resolution, Sylvia?
Yes.
Okay, Stephen, continue while Sylvia works on the
All right.
resolution.
Another, Lisa Motto, our grant administrator, brought it to my attention that we received the gas pump funding to fix that, for that mitigation. So I will be having another, on the 17th, a budget amendment to fund the receiving of those funds and putting it into the highway budget to be able to precipitate that work.
At the highway yard.
Yes. Yep, the gas pump's up there. But also, she did mention, and she dropped this tidbit before she left today, that they'll likely, once the Centennial Wall project is obligated, send us those funds immediately as well. So we may not need to go out and borrow the funds
That's awesome.
to do that. So we have a resolution to protect the village and for us to do that, but we likely, if they do follow through on that, we'll likely not have to do that. So that's really good news, and that will save interest and funding for the residents down the line.
So
that's
a little
positive.
update on Centennial Park retaining wall as well. Bob and I attended a meeting a couple of weeks ago at the town and we invited the yacht club because the yacht club is a stakeholder in this project, since the yacht club is located on town property and Centennial Beach is town property. We both have leases to the respective parcels. And so we invited the yacht club representatives to be very much aware of what was going on in the discussions with regard to the retaining wall. So they had an opportunity to ask questions and just communicate with their membership what was going on. So what we decided, and we're going to have to, I think, Dave, write this up, formalize it in some way, shape, or form, is that the town is going to provide in-kind support, workforce, and carting during demolition and excavation, which will save the village over $120,000 on this project. And it also qualifies the village for the required match, 25% grant match, to FEMA to do this construction. So no out-of-pocket from the village. The town is working, they will cart the material away, and they will excavate. They're going to do a couple of test pits up there coming up in the next few days. And so anyway, that's kind of a hopeful, happy ending in working with the town, meeting with the town, coordinating with them on this project. We're happy that they decided to chip in and offset some of the cost.
Yeah, and just another quick update. Likely we'll just be going through HADA. They got the quote to do that, those test pits, and we'll be producing a purchase order to get that rolling, starting probably tomorrow morning.
I think the bid came in from a firm,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Have started a project, as we all know, we've heard from Jen Hildreth that the Treasury Department produces lots of paper. Trying to create more space, so I'm working with the intern to start scanning our invoices packets into Edmunds, which has the capability and always has had the capability to attach all the documents that are produced as a digital file, so that in the future, we may not have to have all of the file cabinet folders and immediately accessed, and we could go right into the computer and pull up a PDF. So he started that. He worked about 3 hours on Tuesday doing that and getting through some of those files, it takes a long time. Anybody that's done scanning project, it's tedious, but it's well worth it, I think, in the long run. And it's something that should likely begin and become part of the routine for everybody doing invoices moving forward, as tedious as it is.
What? Tedious. Okay.
It's just a
I
lot.
think it's great. I don't think it's, maybe it's hard, it's tedious work.
Tedious is in the amount of effort that it's needed to do it.
Well,
But-
it's welcome to,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Also, had a conference call with the Commissioner of Finance, with Edmonds, on a finance module upgrade that could perhaps bring some of our financial reporting to the 21st century with more visual cues and graphs and the ability to, for lay people to better understand what the finances are saying in a visual way. It might be something that could even be put in my reports, down the line. So we're looking at that and trying to get a quote. So that may be coming down the pike, depending, as long as it's not some obscene amount as an add-on. I think it could be very helpful, not only for the board and for village staff, but also for the residents at some point in time. So we're doing that. We did receive the capital asset report after the auditors had a chance to look at it. That should have been distributed, I think, through the work session folder. I don't know if anybody had a chance to go through it, but that is available. And if anybody has any questions on that, can likely talk through that. So that's done. Did get the new NISHIP rates. Thankfully, this year didn't go up as extreme as we thought it might. It's still not great, still 9%, which is a pretty large increase on the NISHIP medical benefits for 26. But it could have been worse, and possibly could, based on the discussions that I had with NIBES, could get worse in 27. But for the upcoming year, it's 9%, so that's something that we can start working off of for the budget. And I spoke with our insurance broker that NYMER is likely going to go up 10%, 11% at the most. So all of our other ancillary, once you include all the other ancillary insurances, likely a 13% increase, which is compared to the 80% we were staring at going into last budget year, is a welcome change. And NYMER is a little bit ahead of, they set their rates well ahead of time. And on top of that, thanks to the work that Clerk Perillo did working with Salerno and with NYMER, we're going to be, as long as we stay with NYMER, get another check for just under $30,000 as a reimbursement for the capital fronting of the creation of NYMER back in the day that is owed to the Village of Port Jefferson. So that is a revenue stream we wouldn't otherwise get, that we can offset some costs there, which is a positive development. And then I've been working also with our tax receiver and our assessor on the upcoming tax bills for the next budget year. And one of the things that I wanted to bring to the board's attention is that Rail Realty, which has been a pilot for the last, since their inception, is coming off the books next year and will be fully assessed, fully taxable for next year. So that's about, I think if I remember correctly, $73,000 in assessment that now goes into, from exempt to assessable, that helps offset all of the tax base and helps offset the tax rate and everything else. So that's a positive development. So that's one down, 1 out of the 6.
Is that what we have, 6?
We had 6, yes. So
That's the hills.
yes, that's the hills, thank you. So that's a lot of talking, so if anybody has any questions on my report, happy to answer anything else. Otherwise, unless we want to go through the resolution first.
Well, okay. Mayor, we have resolution number 712325, resolution approving the engagement of Beauvais Industries per quote number 25034 in the amount of $455,599 as recommended by Hayduck Engineering to remediate the hazardous condition of the retaining wall on an emergency basis on the north side of East Broadway between Grant Street and Cliff Road. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Moran.
You're up.
Just on,
sure.
just on Stephen's report, I just want to thank you for putting all this comprehensive parking data in there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to take some time and parse through it. But the only thing I was curious, is there any updates on what we're getting from Lessings? Because I don't think that's in here now. I'm just curious how that is going.
Lessings, For the revenue,
Yeah, from the catering hall.
If you give me a second, I'll pull it up. I haven't gotten the November number. I did get the October number, but I just want to make sure I give you the correct amount. We received $12,980 for October. And for this fiscal year, from June through October, it's $114,807 that we've received so far.
From June to October?
From June to October, correct. I typically reach out to Lessings to try and get the updated figure for November around this time. So hopefully, as soon as I have that, I'll be able to update. Maybe on the 17th, I'll have it by then.
Are they coming in at their projections then?
I think it's slightly off the pace. That is something, it's one of the things that we're looking at. It's slightly off the pace from what we had budgeted, right? I think in the initial discussions, they talked about what their revenue might be for the first year, and I think they're actually exceeding that number. I think they were talking maybe 1.8 million. So they're projected to exceed that for their first year. I think, actually, I don't want to think.
Okay. That's fine.
Those
Yeah.
discussions are ongoing. I don't want to think. I'd rather based on statistics and data. So.
We have a request from them asking, we're going through a formal process to figure out how to program the meadow area and anything else underneath the first level of the property. So they put in a request to us for use of the meadow property to book a wedding in May of 2027. And the family wanted confirmation that they could use that meadow area. So anybody have any concerns? I mean, I think what we have to do, and without going into detail or negotiate in public or anything like that, we just have to figure out how we're going to program the meadow area and how that looks going forward and how to respond. We've provided their requests for an amendment to the CCMAC. CCMAC is establishing a subcommittee to address like social and hospitality areas, made up of 4 people who have a lot to contribute to that discussion. And you've all met the CCMAC, so you know who brings what to that group. So I think they're going to meet with the Lessings folks just to sort of to be the starting point of hashing out some of the conversations, some of the aspects of what's proposed. But in the meantime, if Lessings comes to us, the village, with a request for use of the space, can we confirm with a potential client that they can use this space, which is outside of the contract, the current lease? We have to talk about how we go about approving that, doing that, what to do with that. So, and a lot of times it's like, if we don't say yes right now, they'll go to another place. We'll lose that 225-person wedding, which is 6 figures, a 6-figure wedding. So we have a stake in the game. So, I'm trying to get something done quickly. And I've asked Kemper about it. Kemper started on Monday last week, their process. And they had some advice, but again, not to negotiate in this atmosphere, but I wanted to let you know that this is being discussed, and we have to come to a resolution pretty quickly on an interim basis for those types of requests. So with that, I'll turn it over to our attorney.
From my perspective,
Mhm.
it's inevitable that I believe the intent of the Meadow project was to be a shared space. So them being able to use that space during certain weddings at certain times of year I, from a legal standpoint, I believe the intents are clear on both parties. So now it's just a matter of what that negotiation looked like. I am not too offended by the fact that they have someone wanting to book a year and a half from now or 2 years from now that wants to use that space, because I would like to think within months, not years, this is no longer an issue. And again, if we, not losing a six-figure wedding is only in our best interest. So I'm not 100% offended by the fact that they can have assurances that that space may be available to them, and then whatever deal we make with them, and as far as use, we already know that that date, that time, that period is off limits. And maybe we do it under the theory that you can give those assurances to this client, but get your ass to the table. So, because this is the last time we're making that kind of, where's the proposal? What does it look like
Well,
from your end?
They're at the table.
But where is their proposal then from their end, is what I mean. Like, if they want to sit down and negotiate the space, what's your offer? Where you want to start? When they wanted to take over the building, they came with a proposal almost ASAP. So I'm thinking, I would suggest that if the board's inclined, we give them we don't need a vote to do it either. We give them the assurances that, as contemplated for, but you'll get this one, you will not get the next one. Get to the table with real numbers, how you want it, how you envision it.
And the impact is retroactive to any preliminary approval to use the space.
Correct.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I would, it's been a long time that we've been talking about a negotiation and a contract for that space, so I'm not sure that I would say yes to anything until we get an agreement in place. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Dave.
Some of that is our fault,
Yeah.
though.
What?
Some of that is our fault for
I get it, but-
asking our various commissions and the vendor we just brought on to weigh in for our benefit to see what that space should look like and how it's used. And I would hate to see that affect our bottom line, because we're still doing our due diligence to see what we want.
Understood, but I agree 100% with what you said, as far as give us your proposal, tell us what you want to do. It's been completed for, several months now. Tell us what you want. Let's figure out, so we have all the information in place and we can make, an informed decision going forward.
I think it extends so complete transparency. I think it extends past the meadow to the bottom of the building, which is where they're getting, there's going to be one addendum to address the issues of the use of the bottom of the building. We already authorized use of the old, I believe it was the old general manager's office from the village for use for their manager or whomever, again, outside the contract. And I Trustee Franco, I don't disagree with you. And I think this might be a good opportunity to, one, not lose a possible six-figure wedding, and two, we're now poised, because we now have our Kemper on board. We've already been in discussions with the necessary people at the golf course and the various committees to get everyone to the table, with the understanding that it's a one-off. We're not going to acquiesce to any further engagement.
And that office space was a temporary usage until we came up with a final contractual. It's not like it's theirs now. Just I want to make clarification on that.
If you went there, and they're using the office, right?
No, I get it, but we were gonna come up with a way to be reimbursed for the use of that office at some point. It was
That's
a
my point.
yeah,
My
okay.
point is, it's more, you said, well, the meadow's been completed for months, how come we're not, because it's the meadow, it's the office, it's what the old tennis pro shop, it's the storage space, we're dressing it all in one big thing, which is probably on their end what's taking longer. Certainly what's on our end, what we want that bottom space to look like for our benefit, for our members, and, weighing in with the social aspect of the club other than golf, what is that gonna look like as well? So, my 2 cents.
Okay, so Attorney Moran, you want to continue?
We have a consensus on that, so deal with that.
Okay.
Yes, as part of any report that I'm going to give, I did attend a meeting with Trustee Urginski, who I'm sure if she was here, she would have discussed it with Lightpath and PSCG and the power plant and the ramifications of any possible closure, the agreements as far as the tax assessment moving forward, and all of that as a proactive step to be prepared budgetarily to what happens down the road as they, depending on which agreement you read, wind down or increase their activities. So it was a good first meeting. It was positive in the sense that we garnered some information from them, and they were open and honest, and they were talking about how certain energy fields are weighing in on them utilizing the steam generated plant more than they anticipated now. If you ask the other municipalities that surround it, they believe that it's possible that the power plant would be winding down and ultimately to become vacant land. There are some, depending on the energy sources out there, there's either a 1 or 2 year notification period to reduce the steam generation, and if it's offshore wind, it's 2 year notification there's a whole formula that they're using. Long and the short of it is, they don't seem to be winding down the use of the plant. It doesn't make the assessments that were done right or wrong, but I would suspect it'd be an extension of the agreement that would likely happen. And the basically end result of that fact-finding mission was maybe get quarterly updates from them in a quarterly type meeting, but make sure all necessary and effective parties are present and get the same update so they could all prepare budgetarily, whether it's the town, the school district, or otherwise, so everyone understands the stake in the game. So if it's decided that the plant close, what is that going to look like for our mutual tax bases? So that's kind of the update from that meeting. It was a good first meeting. I believe it gave the trustee and myself some confidence in the sense that we don't necessarily have to prepare for a 2027 or 26, whatever the date is, budgetary lapse, because they're not going to extend the agreement. I believe the agreement will be extended. At least that's what they hinted at. And we're going to keep it on a quarterly leash unless we need to keep it on a tighter leash. But I urged Trustee Urginski that we shouldn't really meet with them moving forward without the other municipalities present, at least so we're all on that same page, because I could tell you I don't believe we currently are. That's my opinion. So that's the update on that. Other than that, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, anybody? I was thinking about something, Kyle, you reported, and I can't remember what it was, where the town was involved, not the local waterfront, but something else. Yes. Would you be interested in reaching out to Jonathan's office, Cornrish's office, about that and the ferry traffic, just to start?
It's been a struggle just to get the Uber drop-off situation.
Yeah.
I'll put it in his head.
It might be part of the local waterfront revitalization planning. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe that just becomes part of the one of the recommendations for, that the 15th. Yeah.
That would be probably more amenable than the park that we really want.
Yeah.
Don't forget the park.
Yeah, we can throw that in there. Absolutely. Okay. Without anything else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.